Welcome to our geographical journey this evening, a peaceful exploration of the Japanese archipelago. As you settle in, allow your thoughts to drift with us across island landscapes where mountains meet sea, where seasons change with elegant precision, and where geographical forces have shaped a land of remarkable harmony and contrast. Before we begin our full journey, I invite you to take a moment to create a mental image of an island. Perhaps you're imagining a small, verdant landmass surrounded by gentle waves, or a rugged mountainous shore rising from misty waters. Maybe you're picturing a coastal village nestled between hills and harbor, or forests reaching down to meet sandy beaches. Whatever image comes to mind, allow it to fill your thoughts as we prepare to explore the island nation of Japan. This mental picture will accompany us throughout our journey tonight. A personal connection to the archipelago world will be describing. As you continue to hold that image of an island in your mind, I wonder, have you ever experienced the changing of seasons in a place where each season arrives with its own distinct character? If you have, you might recall how the landscape transforms itself through cycles of renewal and rest. If not, that's perfectly fine. Our journey tonight will provide all you need to envision this remarkable seasonal rhythm. Either way, your own experiences with natural cycles will add a unique dimension to the geographical exploration we're about to begin. If you find these geographical journeys bring you peaceful rest, consider subscribing to join us for future explorations of the world's most soothing landscapes. Each journey is crafted to guide you gently toward slumber while sharing the quiet wonders of our planet's most remarkable places. The Japanese archipelago stretches along the eastern edge of the Asian continent, a chain of islands formed by the meeting of great tectonic plates beneath the Earth's crust. This island nation consists of 4 main islands: Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku, and Kyushu, along with more than 6,800 smaller islands. Together, they form an arc that extends for approximately 3,000 kilometers, a distance so vast that the northern and southern reaches of the country experience entirely different climates. The waters surrounding this island chain include 4 bodies of water, each with its own character. To the east and south lies the Pacific Ocean, vast and powerful, sending its oceanic currents to shape the climate of the islands. To the west, the Sea of Japan creates a narrower channel between Japan and the Asian mainland, its waters influenced by different currents and weather patterns. To the southwest, the East China Sea connects Japan to the broader network of Southeast Asian waters, while to the north, the Sea of Okhotsk brings colder influences from subpolar regions. The formation of these islands began more than 15 million years ago, a span of time so vast that it defies easy comprehension. During this extensive period, the Pacific Plate has been steadily moving beneath the Eurasian Plate in a process geologists call subduction. This slow collision between enormous sections of the Earth's crust has created the volcanic activity and mountain building that gave birth to the Japanese islands. This process continues today, progressing at a pace measured in centimeters per year, a movement so gradual that a human observer would never perceive it directly. Yet over geological time, it has raised mountains and shaped coastlines. If we were to fly above the Japanese archipelago, we would see a land dominated by mountains. Nearly 75% of Japan consists of mountainous terrain, creating a geography where flat lowlands become precious spaces that have shaped patterns of human settlement for thousands of years. These mountains run like spines through the islands, their forested slopes creating the characteristic profile visible from both sea and lowland perspectives. The gentle presence of water shapes every aspect of Japanese geography. Being an island nation, no location in Japan lies more than 150 kilometers from the sea, a relationship with the ocean that influences everything from climate to culture. Beyond the surrounding seas, Japan's mountains give birth to thousands of rivers. These waterways, though typically short and steep in their descent from mountain to sea, have created the fertile valleys and plains where much of Japan's population resides today. I wonder if you're still awake enough to consider it, where you might be watching from tonight, and what time it is in your corner of the world. Perhaps you're surrounded by landscapes entirely different from these island mountains we're exploring together. Whether you're nestled among your own mountains, spread across plains, or tucked into coastal regions, know that your journey toward sleep continues at its own perfect pace, just as the geological processes that shaped Japan continue at their own measured rhythm. The topography of the Japanese archipelago creates a landscape of remarkable variation within relatively short distances. The backbone of the country consists of several mountain ranges, including the Japan Alps in central Honshu, where peaks rise to heights of nearly 3,000 meters. These central mountains, with their steep, dramatic profiles, have historically served as natural dividers, separating eastern and western Japan, and influencing patterns of cultural development over centuries. Mount Fuji stands as Japan's highest peak, reaching 3,776 meters above sea level. This iconic stratovolcano, with its nearly perfect conical shape, represents just one of Japan's 108 active volcanoes, a number that accounts for approximately 10% of all active volcanoes on Earth. This concentration of volcanic activity in such a relatively small land area demonstrates the powerful geological forces still at work beneath the Japanese islands. Between mountain ranges lie river basins and valleys that have been shaped by water flowing from higher elevations toward the sea. The Kanto Plain, surrounding modern Tokyo, represents the largest of these lowland areas, covering approximately 17,000 square kilometers. This plain has been formed over thousands of years by sediments carried down from surrounding mountains by the tone Ara, and Tama rivers, creating a flat, fertile landscape that stands in stark contrast to the mountainous terrain that dominates most of the archipelago. Coastlines throughout the Japanese islands show remarkable diversity in their forms. In some regions, particularly along the Pacific coast of central Honshu, relatively straight shorelines extend for long distances, occasionally interrupted by bays and peninsulas. In other areas, such as the inland sea between Honshu, Shikoku, and Kyushu, complex networks of islands create a maze of channels and protected waterways. Along the Sea of Japan, particularly in the north, rugged cliffs alternate with gentler shores, each shaped by the particular interaction of rock type, wave action, and geological history unique to that location. Lakes dot the Japanese landscape, many of them formed through volcanic or tectonic activity. Lake Biwa, near the ancient capital of Kyoto, holds the distinction of being Japan's largest freshwater lake, with a surface area of 670 square kilometers. More remarkable than its size is its age. Lake Biwa has existed continuously for approximately 4 million years, making it one of the oldest lakes in the world. Throughout this vast span of time, it has witnessed the entire evolution of human civilization while maintaining its quiet presence in the landscape. The geological foundations of the Japanese islands vary considerably from region to region. The oldest rocks, some dating back more than 570 million years, can be found in isolated locations across the archipelago. These ancient stones have witnessed the entire formation of the island chain from beneath. Above these foundations, younger layers tell the story of Japan's volcanic origins, with widespread deposits of volcanic rock, ash, and other materials ejected during eruptions throughout prehistoric and historic times. I'm curious, if sleep hasn't yet embraced you completely, what aspects of island landscapes might draw you to them? Perhaps it's the defining boundary between land and water, or the self-contained nature of island ecosystems. Or maybe it's the way islands often develop unique characteristics through their isolation. There's no need to answer aloud or even fully form the thought. Just let your mind drift with the contemplation of islands as we continue our journey across the Japanese archipelago. The geographical relationships within the Japanese archipelago create natural connections and barriers that have shaped both the natural environment and human development throughout history. The orientation of the island chain, stretching from northeast to southwest, creates a natural corridor along which plants, animals, and even cultural influences have historically moved. This elongated arrangement also means that Japan encompasses several different climate zones within its territory, from the snowy northern reaches of Hokkaido to the subtropical environments of the southern Ryukyu Islands. The relationship between mountain and sea creates perhaps the most fundamental geographical pattern within the Japanese landscape. With mountains occupying such a large percentage of the land area, most major human settlements have developed in the limited coastal plains, where flat land is available for agriculture and urban development. This has created a population distribution that concentrates along coastlines and in lowland river basins, with much lower population densities in the mountainous interior regions. The mountains themselves function as more than mere barriers. They serve as the water towers of Japan, collecting precipitation and releasing it gradually through countless streams and rivers. During spring, when snow melts in the higher elevations, this water makes its way downslope, providing essential moisture for agriculture in the lowlands. This flow of water connects highlands and lowlands in an essential relationship that has supported Japanese civilization for millennia. Forests cover approximately 67% of Japan's land area, creating a green mantle that stretches across mountains and hills throughout the archipelago. These forests vary in composition depending on elevation, latitude, and local conditions. In the lowlands and lower mountain slopes, broad-leaved deciduous forests dominated by beech, oak, and maple trees create landscapes that transform dramatically with the seasons. At higher elevations, particularly in northern regions, coniferous forests of spruce, fir, and pine create darker, more evergreen canopies that maintain their character year-round. The islands themselves vary considerably in size and character. Honshu, the largest island, stretches for over 1,300 kilometers, with a width that varies from 50 to 230 kilometers. This elongated shape means that despite being an island, much of Honshu has a relatively continental climate, with greater temperature extremes between summer and winter than one might expect for an island environment. Hokkaido, the northernmost of the main islands, has a rounder shape and a climate more heavily influenced by its northern position, with cold winters and mild summers. Kyushu and Shikoku, the southernmost of the four main islands, experience warmer temperatures and greater precipitation, influenced by their proximity to subtropical maritime currents. The position of the Japanese archipelago relative to the Asian mainland has created a biogeographical relationship where plant and animal species from the continent have historically made their way to the islands during periods when lower sea levels created land bridges. Once these connections were severed by rising seas, these populations evolved in isolation, eventually developing characteristics distinct from their mainland ancestors. This process has resulted in many endemic species, plants and animals found nowhere else on Earth, that contribute to Japan's unique natural heritage. From a geological perspective, the position of Japan along the Pacific Ring of Fire not only contributes to its volcanic nature, but also makes it prone to seismic activity. The movement of tectonic plates beneath the islands creates stress that is periodically released through earthquakes, some of considerable magnitude. These seismic events have shaped not only the physical landscape, but also Japanese architecture, engineering, and cultural attitudes toward impermanence and renewal. Imagine, if you will, standing on a mountain pass in central Honshu, looking out across a landscape where forested peaks extend toward the horizon in layers of deepening blue. Below, a river valley winds its way toward distant lowlands, carrying the mountain's waters toward the sea. This perspective reveals the essential connectivity of the Japanese landscape, how elevation, water, vegetation, and human settlement all exist in relationship to one another, creating patterns that repeat across the archipelago with endless subtle variations. I wonder, as you continue your journey toward sleep, whether there might be landscapes near your own home that share some qualities with the Japanese islands, perhaps not in appearance, but in the way they've been shaped over time by natural forces, or in how they create transitions from one environment to another. Maybe there's a hillside where forest meets meadow, or a shoreline where land meets water. These geographical patterns surround us everywhere on our planet, connecting us to the same fundamental processes that have shaped the Japanese archipelago, though perhaps operating on different scales or in different mediums. The seasonal rhythms of the Japanese archipelago follow patterns of remarkable clarity and definition, creating a yearly cycle that has influenced everything from agricultural practices to artistic traditions throughout Japanese history. Unlike many tropical or subtropical regions where seasonal changes may be subtle, or polar regions where the year is divided primarily between extended periods of light and dark, Japan experiences 4 distinct seasons, each with its own character and influence on the landscape. Spring arrives in Japan with a wave of renewal that begins in the southern islands and gradually moves northward. By meteorological measures, spring typically begins in March and extends through May, though local conditions create considerable variation across the archipelago. The most celebrated harbinger of Japanese spring is the blooming of sakura, or cherry blossoms. This phenomenon begins as early as January in the southernmost islands, reaches the central regions of Honshu by late March or early April, and finally arrives in Hokkaido by May. The sakura bloom lasts only 1 to 2 weeks in any given location, creating an ephemeral beauty that has become deeply embedded in Japanese cultural aesthetics. During spring, temperatures gradually warm, with daytime averages rising from around 10 degrees C in March to 20 degrees C by late May in central regions. Precipitation increases as well, with many areas experiencing the beginnings of the rainy season by late spring. This combination of warming temperatures and increased moisture creates ideal conditions for plant growth, with new leaves unfurling across forests and agricultural lands awakening after winter dormancy. Summer brings warmer temperatures and increased humidity to most of the archipelago. In central Honshu, daytime temperatures typically range from 25 degrees C to 30 degrees C during July and August, though they can occasionally rise higher during heat waves. The rainy season, known as Tsuyu, typically occurs during June and early July, bringing steady precipitation that replenishes water sources before the heat of midsummer. After this rainy period, August often brings clearer skies and the warmest temperatures of the year. The summer climate varies considerably across Japan's geography. Southern islands, like Okinawa, experience truly tropical conditions, with temperatures remaining warm even overnight and humidity levels that remain high throughout the season. The northern island of Hokkaido, by contrast, enjoys a considerably milder summer, with pleasant temperatures that rarely become uncomfortably hot and lower humidity that makes even the warmest days feel more moderate. Autumn arrives in Japan with a gradual cooling that begins in September and extends through November. Like spring, autumn moves across the archipelago as a wave, but in the opposite direction, beginning in the northern reaches of Hokkaido and gradually moving southward. This season brings what many consider the most pleasant weather of the year, with clear skies, moderate temperatures, and lower humidity, creating comfortable conditions throughout much of the country. The most visible manifestation of autumn in Japan is the changing color of deciduous forest leaves, a phenomenon known as koyo that rivals cherry blossom season in its cultural significance. This transformation begins in the mountains of northern Japan by mid-September, reaches central Honshu by October and early November, and finally appears in southern regions by late November or early December. The Japanese maple, with its deeply cut leaves that turn vibrant scarlet, symbolizes this season most iconically, though countless other tree species contribute their yellows, oranges, and browns to the autumn palette. Winter settles over the Japanese archipelago between December and February, bringing considerable variation in conditions across the country's geographical span. The northern island of Hokkaido experiences the most severe winter conditions, with temperatures frequently falling below freezing and substantial snowfall accumulating throughout the season. The Sea of Japan coast of Honshu also receives heavy snowfall, as prevailing winter winds pick up moisture over the relatively warm sea, then release it as snow when they encounter the mountains of central Honshu. This creates some of the snowiest inhabited regions on Earth, with some mountain villages receiving more than 10 meters of cumulative snowfall during an average winter. By contrast, the Pacific coast of Japan experiences much milder winter conditions, with less precipitation and temperatures that rarely fall below freezing in lowland areas. The southern islands have the mildest winters of all, with Okinawa maintaining daily average temperatures around 17 degrees C, even in January, allowing subtropical vegetation to flourish year-round. I wonder if you've ever had a peaceful experience during a particular season that stays with you as a memory you can revisit when seeking calm. Perhaps It was watching autumn leaves float down a stream, or feeling the first warm breeze of spring, or walking through freshly fallen snow in winter silence. If you have such a memory, you might bring it alongside our journey across the Japanese islands tonight, allowing these seasonal reflections to blend in your mind as you continue to drift towards sleep. The human relationship with the Japanese archipelago has been shaped by its distinctive geographical character for thousands of years. Archaeological evidence indicates human presence on these islands dating back more than 30,000 years, with early inhabitants adapting to the mountainous, forested landscape through hunting, gathering, and fishing. The introduction of rice cultivation around 3,000 years ago marked a significant transition, with paddy agriculture becoming established in the limited lowland areas, where flat, well-watered terrain made such practices possible. The distribution of human settlement across the Japanese islands reflects the underlying geographical realities of the archipelago. Today, approximately 127 million people inhabit these islands, with the vast majority, nearly 80%, concentrated in urban areas located primarily on coastal plains and river valleys. The largest of these urban concentrations extends along the southern coast of Honshu, creating a nearly continuous urban corridor from Tokyo to Osaka that includes the Kanto Plain, the Nobai Plain, and the Osaka Plain. This region, sometimes called the Taiheiyo Belt, represents one of the most densely populated areas on Earth. By contrast, the mountainous interior regions of Japan remain relatively sparsely populated, with settlements often confined to narrow river valleys where limited flat land is available. In these areas, traditional villages typically developed in locations that balanced access to fresh water, arable land, building materials from forests, and protection from floods or landslides. Many of these settlements have maintained their traditional character through centuries, with houses oriented to maximize southern exposure for warmth and light, and with community forests managed collectively to ensure sustainable timber harvesting. The interaction between geographical constraints and human ingenuity is perhaps most visible in Japan's agricultural landscapes. Rice paddies, the most iconic agricultural feature, represent a remarkable adaptation to Japan's mountainous terrain and abundant water resources. In lowland areas, these paddies spread across flat plains in geometric patterns divided by raised earthen berms. In more mountainous regions, terraced paddies follow the contours of hillsides, creating stepped landscapes that maximize the use of limited flat land, while controlling the flow of water from higher to lower elevations. The coastline of Japan, stretching for approximately 29,751 kilometers, has shaped human settlement patterns since prehistoric times. Fishing villages developed in protected bays and inlets, often characterized by their small harbors and houses clustered near the water's edge. These communities traditionally maintained a close relationship with both the sea that provided their livelihood and the forested mountains visible behind their settlements, creating a cultural geography that recognized the interconnection between these different environments. Urban development in Japan has been influenced by both geographical constraints and cultural preferences. Traditional Japanese cities typically developed around castles or religious centers, with street patterns adapted to local topography rather than imposed in strict grids. Kyoto, the ancient capital, exemplifies this approach, with its layout influenced by both Chinese geomantic principles and the practical realities of building in a basin surrounded by mountains. Modern Japanese cities, while incorporating contemporary urban planning approaches, still show the influence of geographical constraints, with buildings often clustered densely in limited flat areas, and with transportation infrastructure carefully engineered to navigate challenging terrain. The transportation networks that connect different regions of Japan have been shaped by the archipelago's mountainous nature. Traditional routes often followed river valleys or crossed mountain passes at their lowest points, creating pathways that minimized the challenges of elevation change. The development of modern transportation infrastructure has required extensive engineering works to overcome geographical barriers, with tunnels and bridges becoming essential elements of both rail and highway systems. The Seikan Tunnel, connecting Honshu and Hokkaido beneath the Tsugaru Strait, and the Akashi Kaikyo Bridge, linking Honshu and Awaji Island across the inland sea, represent two of the most impressive examples of how modern engineering has modified Japan's island geography to create more seamless connections. The relationship between human settlement and natural hazards represents another important dimension of Japan's human geography. Located in one of the world's most seismically active regions, Japanese communities have developed building techniques and cultural practices that acknowledge the reality of earthquakes and tsunami. Traditional wooden architecture, with its flexible joinery and relatively light weight, evolved partly as an adaptation to seismic activity. Modern Japanese buildings incorporate some of the world's most advanced earthquake-resistant design features, demonstrating how geographical challenges continue to shape human adaptation in the archipelago. The pattern of religious sites across the Japanese landscape reveals another aspect of human geographical relationships. Shinto shrines, often located near distinctive natural features such as unusual rock formations, old-growth trees, or waterfalls, reflect a spiritual tradition that recognizes certain landscapes as possessing particular sacred qualities. Buddhist temples, while sometimes found in similar settings, also developed in urban contexts, creating sacred geographies within cities and towns. Mountain asceticism, a tradition that combines elements of both Shinto and Buddhism, has created networks of sacred routes through many of Japan's mountain ranges, with temples and shrines marking stations along pilgrimage routes that traverse some of the archipelago's most challenging terrain. I wonder, as you continue drifting toward sleep, which aspects of this journey across the Japanese archipelago you found most conducive to relaxation. Perhaps it's been the descriptions of forest-covered mountains, or the rhythm of seasonal changes, or simply the opportunity to imagine yourself in a landscape shaped by the patient forces of geological time. Whatever elements have brought you the most peace, allow them to remain in your thoughts as we continue our journey. As we begin to bring our geographical journey across the Japanese archipelago toward a gentle conclusion, let us return to the fundamental elements that define this remarkable island nation. Japan exists as a meeting place of powerful natural forces, the movement of tectonic plates, the flow of ocean currents, the cycle of seasons, and the adaptations of countless living species, including humans, to these geographical realities. This interplay has created a landscape of extraordinary beauty and diversity within a relatively small spatial extent. The waters surrounding the Japanese islands move in patterns shaped by major ocean currents. The warm Kuroshio Current flows northward along the Pacific coast, bringing tropical waters from the Philippines toward Japan's eastern shores. This warm flow moderates coastal temperatures and influences weather patterns throughout the archipelago. Meanwhile, the colder Ashio Current moves southward from the Arctic regions, meeting the Kuroshio off the coast of northern Honshu. This meeting of warm and cold waters creates one of the world's most productive marine environments, supporting the rich fisheries that have sustained coastal communities throughout Japanese history. Within the sheltered waters of the inland sea, gentler currents move between the islands of Honshu, Shikoku, and Kyushu, creating a maritime environment distinct from the open ocean conditions of the Pacific or the Sea of Japan. Here, tidal flows move through narrow straits between islands, creating rhythmic exchanges of water that have influenced both natural ecosystems and human activities such as fishing, transportation, and aquaculture. The Japanese landscape breathes with the rhythm of the seasons, each bringing its own quality of light, temperature, and precipitation. This annual cycle creates a temporal geography as significant as the spatial patterns we've explored. Spring brings renewal and growth. Summer offers abundance and energy. Autumn provides harvest and reflection, and winter delivers rest and preparation for the cycle to begin again. This seasonal rhythm has become deeply embedded in Japanese cultural practices, from agricultural traditions to poetic conventions, from festival calendars to architectural adaptations. The forests that cover much of Japan's mountainous terrain represent one of the archipelago's most significant geographical features. These woodlands consist primarily of temperate broadleaf and mixed forests, with coniferous forests at higher elevations and in northern regions. Unlike the tropical rainforests found at similar latitudes in other parts of the world, Japan's forests experience distinct seasonal changes, with many tree species losing their leaves during winter dormancy. This cycle of growth and rest, of green abundance and bare branches, provides a visible marker of time's passage across the landscape. Throughout our journey, we've observed how water flows through the Japanese landscape, connecting mountains to plains and land to sea. Rain and snow fall on mountain slopes, gathering in streams that join to form rivers flowing toward coastal plains. These watercourses have shaped valleys, transported sediments, and created the fertile lowlands where much of Japan's population resides. Rivers such as the Shinano, Japan's longest at 367 kilometers, and the Tone, which drains much of the Kanto Plain, represent not just physical features, but historical pathways that have facilitated movement and connection throughout the archipelago. As we float one last time above the Japanese archipelago, imagine the island chain extending beneath us, its mountain spines rising from the surrounding seas, its forests covering slopes in varying shades of green, its rivers tracing silvery paths from highlands to coast, and its human settlements nestled where geographical conditions have proved most favorable. The thousands of islands that make up the archipelago, the four main islands with their distinctive characters, the countless mountains and valleys, rivers and lakes, forests and fields, all are part of a geographical whole that transcends any single perspective or moment in time. The Japanese archipelago represents a geographical wonder, not just because of its beauty or diversity, but because it demonstrates so perfectly how our planet's systems interact across different scales of time and space, from the geological forces that continue to shape these islands to the seasonal cycles that transform their appearance throughout the year, from the biogeographical processes that have created unique ecosystems to the human adaptations that have established one of the world's most distinctive cultural landscapes. All are part of the geographical story of this remarkable place. If you find yourself drifting, as I hope you are, allow the gentle waves of sleep to carry you away from our exploration of the Japanese islands. If you're still awake, know that the patient rhythms of this island nation continue, just as they have for thousands of years, and just as they will long after this night has passed. The geographical journey we've taken together across the Japanese archipelago is one you can revisit in your mind whenever you seek the peaceful rhythms of this island world. If these geographical journeys bring you peaceful rest, remember that you can subscribe to join us for future explorations of the world's most soothing landscapes. Until our next journey together, may you drift into sleep as gently as cherry blossoms falling on a spring afternoon, carried by dreams toward morning's distant shore.